plan. And the thing is not working. Okay? So we shall look at some principles of nutrition. I'm reminded of the scripture in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 31. It says, it's right there on the screen, it says, whether therefore you eat or drink, and whatsoever you do, you should do what? We should do all to whose glory? And we discover that this word glory just doesn't mean shine and dazzling. It actually means a lot more than the word presents itself. When you do the chain study or a cross-reference study, you find that the glory actually represents God's character. So we should do all to reflect his character. Amen? So we also established that diet is definitely has a relationship or is connected to what? Disease. Because what we are noticing that medicine actually has moved from studying of infectious diseases to chronic diseases or lifestyle diseases. And yesterday we also ascertained that disease never comes without and do you remember what scriptures those were? There was Job 29 verse. Bible scholars, Job 28 says, the cause I knew not, I searched it out. And also Proverbs 26 verse 2 said, everything has a cause. I know sometimes we do go to the hospital, and you can actually say, I don't know what the cause is, but that doesn't mean there is no cause, right? So we understand, like I know you have a brain, but have I ever seen it? You know, I've never seen your brain, but I see the outworking of a brain. So everything comes with a cause. It's just that we may not know what the cause is, but everything has a cause because of the law of cause and effect. Causes of sickness include intemperate eating. This is from Council of Diets and Foods. Intemperate eating is often the cause of sickness. It's right there. And what does intemperate eating mean? Catherine? Pardon? Overeating. That's one way of intemperate eating. Another way you can just use a word and say intemperate eating, but you don't know what. You can say, I don't do intemperate eating, because first of all, you don't know what that even means. So she said overeating. What's another form of intemperate eating? Not balancing the good food nicely. What else? Yes, Mama? Exactly. Not watching when you eat, what you eat, how you eat, all of that. And we shall look more into it. And then it says here, disease is always due to errors in diet. Because yesterday we saw, even from the anatomy and physiology that we studied, that if stuff is not working properly, first of all, you may ingest the right amount or the right time. But if your system is not functioning properly, you will still have disease. And then you can ingest the wrong stuff, which is not going to provide the body with the materials or the catalyst it needs to function, and then disease is the cause. Did you all know that, I know we usually say, when someone dies, ilikuwa wakati wake. Have we ever said that? It was their time to die? Do you know we can hasten our death, or we can die prematurely? Mama, did you know that? So you can die before your time. Can I put it like that? And we find this in Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 17. If you can look that up real quick. Ecclesiastes 7:17. Someone find it? Find for us at my Bible here. Excuse me. Ecclesiastes 7, verse 17. So we are going to find out how we can postpone our funeral. Amen. Janet, just read it for us in a nice loud voice. Have you ever read that verse before? Why should you die before your time? So when somebody dies, let's stop this thing of ilikuwa wakati wake. I mean, granted, God knows the end from the beginning and everyone's time to come, but even if He's saying we can hasten our death, then we need to listen to what He's saying so we can postpone whatever death date that Satan may be having in his mind. Man is digging his grave with his teeth. It's a truth. With his fork and knife, he's doing all these things. So, I don't know how comes I'm not being able to. Are you? Okay, you're able to see. This is Genesis 2:7. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. So God made man from what? He made man from the dust. I want us to keep that in mind in reference to or in connection with what we are studying today, nutrition. We came from the dust of the ground. What's found in the dust? What's found in the dust? She's saying minerals, Catherine. Minerals, elements. That's what's found in the dust. And that's what we were made from. We were made from the dust of the ground. If you find here, God has given to man a dietary plan with a root system to absorb the elements where we came from through the roots into food, and then we eat of the same elements, but through the processing of the food. This is God's wisdom. We came from the dust of the ground, and so for us to be sustained, we have to eat stuff from the dust of the ground. And I know some people say, hey, you see, even everything came from the dust. Why are animals created from the dust of the ground? I'm just checking if we know Genesis 1. Did they come from the dust of the ground? Okay, that's just a side note. So here is the cycle of man. He came from what? Dust. And in dust is found what? We've just said it. We're just doing a recapping because repetition deepens the impression. So dust is composed of elements. Elements do what? They make up food through the root system, the converted through photosynthesis, the process of making food in the plant. It becomes food, and then food builds blood. Blood builds what? And cells are the smallest unit of matter. Cells build tissues. Tissues together become organs, and then man is just a conglomerate or a combination of many systems. And what is the foundation of all of this? God created man. So you see the process? I mean, it's really, if we had just understood this simple foundation, we wouldn't be having so much confusion as to, first of all, who we are, where we came from, or how we are supposed to take care of these bodies. And much of the bragging that we even have wouldn't even be there, because really we are dust. But dust that has value because of what Christ did for it. So these ones we already talked about, that before the fall, after the fall, Genesis 3:18, there it is, for those who didn't catch it. And then this is Genesis 7 verse 2. It's talking about the animals as they went into the ark. The unclean went in by how many numbers? The unclean animals. They went in 2 by 2. And the clean ones? 7 by 7. And you're just saying, you know, they went in sevens. So that Genesis chapter 7 verse 2 is just telling us that. And I think yesterday we touched on this, the restrictions that were given for eating flesh food. It had to have no blood, no fat, and to be eaten in 3 days. But we'll come back to that. The scriptures are, for no blood is Leviticus 17 verse 10 to 14. No fat, Leviticus 7 verse 23. And then to be eaten within 3 days is Leviticus 19 verse 7. But we'll come back to that. If you're to eat meat, I don't fight with people about what they should or shouldn't eat. Just, we really shouldn't fight with anyone. You just present to them the information, let people decide, because God doesn't even force our will. The life of the flesh is where? In the blood. That's found in Leviticus 17:11. Here we find that it is a wonderful process that transforms food into what? Into blood. Is it not up? Oh, it's up. Food into blood, and uses this blood to build up the varied parts of the body. This process is going on continually, but we don't feel it. Remember, we said dust to elements, elements to food, food to blood. Now we're just going through the details of how this happens. And we'll see that nutrition is the process by which that food is turned into blood, either good or bad, depending on what type of nutrition we're having. and how to have the healthy body. The blood builds what? We talked about this. It builds cells. And it is safe to say that all good health begins where? Because we say the cell is the what? It's the smallest. It's the basic unit of life. So if, I think it's Psalms 11, verse 7. It says, if the foundation be destroyed, what shall the righteous do? The cell can be considered the foundation, right? Because it's the smallest unit of, the basic unit of life. So if you're trying to gain health, do you start from the system? Remember, the system is the last part of everything. At what point do you start trying to regain health? From a cellular level. So, I like this scripture in Luke chapter 10, verse 16. It says, he that is faithful in that which is the least will be faithful also in. So the least of this meaning the cell. If you're faithful in taking care of the cells, and this is how you address illness, go to the root cause. Take care of the cells. The cells will, if the cells are okay, actually the blood. If the blood is okay, it produces healthy cells. After you have healthy cells, you'll have healthy tissues and so on and so forth. So you start from the basics. So the blood supplies the 5 needs of the cell, and here they are. I should have asked you first, but the 5 needs of the cell are, they're right there. The first one is, and then, nutrition, and then the waste elimination, and then freedom from poison. So that any unit of life will have those needs. So today we're just addressing one need, and that is the need of nutrients, nutrition. But how long can one last, or a cell last without oxygen? How long? How long can you last without oxygen? You said a few hours. A few seconds. No, not seconds per se. A few minutes. How long could you last without water? Several days. Nutrients, months. But then your body will begin to. And then waste elimination, when you don't, poisons are not eliminated and what have you, you will feel unwell. And for some, I've actually seen someone, let me stop with stories. I was told I was too long yesterday, but it's like you can't help give live examples of some of the things you've witnessed, especially when you've been at something for so long. And then freedom from poisons. If those things are not eliminated, cells will begin to die prematurely and some very quick. So we are entering now into the food and nutrition. And food can be defined as what? Any substance which, when absorbed into the blood, will nourish. It will do what? Nourish tissue. It will repair waste, furnish force, and what? Heat the body without causing injury to any part. So, when you think about food as that, you will not go. I think I saw once in the Guinness World Book of Records, somebody had survived eating metals, surely, and they were still alive. I don't know, some things are supernatural to me, but they were doing metals. But was that causing injury to the body? Yeah, they had little cuts here and there, but first of all, I wonder even just how blood managed to flow without any nutrition, but like I said, some things are supernatural. Our bodies are built up from the food that we eat. There is a constant breaking down of the tissues of the body. Every movement of every organ involves waste, and this waste has to be removed, and it's removed by the food that we eat. Here is the food and the human body. Do you see a resemblance? That's a shock of corn, a maize cob. Do you see what the composition is? I'm sorry, it's not very clear. But the water is the blue, carbohydrates, protein, fat, vitamins. Are we related to the food? Yes? That's pretty much our composition. What the food looks like is what we look like, because food comes from where? Where does the food come from? It comes from the ground. You plant it there, yes, but it comes from, that's where it was planted. And we keep revisiting this. Good health equals, and our sister Janet mentioned it yesterday, good health equals, in order to have good health, we must have, for the blood is the current of life. It repairs waste. Remember what we define food as. It repairs waste, it nourishes the body. When supplied with the proper food elements, and when cleansed and vitalized by contact with pure air, this is all the laws of health, it carries life and vigor to every part of the system. The more perfect the circulation, the better will this work be accomplished. The work of attaining what? Good health. So we defined food, now we're going to define nutrition. And nutrition is defined as what? The series of processes by which an organism takes in and assimilates food for promoting growth and repairing tissues. That's just what nutrition is. A series of processes, like our doctor friend did for us yesterday as we talked about digestion. And that's just a dictionary definition. It's more complex when you go now into the details. Welcome, Edna. So, the nutritional needs, these are they. And we all learned these, at least the basics, in primary school, right? We need carbohydrates, fats, proteins, minerals, and those are the nutritional needs that our bodies need. And most of this is just recap. So the carbohydrates are needed for what? It's right there. They're needed for, and proteins, these are just the basic needs. It's a lot more. The proteins and minerals are used for what? They're used for building tissue. And vitamins, they do what? They facilitate they're actually called like the sparks of life, the vitamins. If you didn't have them, that's why there's such a big industry, as far as the synthetic or the supplements is concerned, nutraceuticals, because of that. So this is just a repetition of what we just said. Food is to provide energy, nutrients, and prevention from disorders. So energy is necessary to function. It comes from what? Two sources. They're right there. A plant source and the animal sources. So from the plant source, we get the carbohydrates. And in the absence of carbohydrates, fat and protein is what is used for energy. Actually, those are some of the methods that they use for weight loss. They tell you don't do carbs, so your body will begin to burn the fat and the protein that's in your body. But eventually, that's for jumpstart. Remember those morbidly obese people we saw? They may do some of that, but it cannot be a sustainable way of life. Why? Because fats and cannot properly broken down without. That's a complex pathway in the system. They need each other so they can be metabolized properly. So the plant nutrients, they provide substances that slow down what? Wear and tear. They have antioxidants and phytochemicals. And most of this stuff is not found where? It's not found. It's right there. In animal food sources. There is no vitamin C or E, no carbohydrate or fiber. And by the way, the muscles found in meat is not fiber, eh? It's just muscles. So there is no fiber in plant protein. And unfortunately, most of what it contains is viruses, parasites, the four groups where we get ill from. Virus, parasite, mold, and bacteria. Any illness apart from a road accident is going to come from either one of those four sources. And our animal sources of food, unfortunately, provide all of that. And the way they're growing food now is also posing a risk to some of those things I've mentioned. Plant foods, they protect from disorders. They have healing properties. And now we'll just go into the details of the food groups that we talked about. So the chemical makeup of any of those food groups we've talked about has to have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. The protein has additional, and that's why we have the interesting smells here and there, of nitrogen and sulfur. That's the chemical makeup. And even in the human body, you'll find that that's the same way we're made up. These are just almost like fun facts. So the definition of carbohydrates is what? Plants that are converted into to supply the vital nutrients. So there are how many kinds? They're right there. Simple and the simple is right there. Monosaccharides or disaccharides. The complex are polysaccharides. And this, we will understand this a little bit more as we continue. The purpose of the carbohydrates was to do what? Remember we saw that? To provide fuel and energy. It's the highest octane for growing and working bodies. And let me skip that. Glucose is the body's main energy source. It is the fuel for the brain. It's the fuel and it's the fuel for the muscles. Without carbohydrates, your body is forced to run or burn on fat and protein. And this can be a potentially dangerous thing. I find it noteworthy to mention this. Fats burn inefficiently. Remember when I talked about carbohydrates and fats together? Fats burn inefficiently in the absence of carbohydrates. The result is your blood becomes polluted with fat waste called ketones. Have you heard of ketone bodies? Yes, this is what's happening. These compounds can damage the brain and cause nausea, fatigue, kidney problems, and then the cleanup of all of this burdens the system. So this is what happens when we go into these crash diets. Here are some types of grains. And I'm sure we are probably familiar with all of this. Rice, millet, sorghum, amaranth. How many are familiar with amaranth? Amaranth, quinoa or quinoa. I really wish I had come with some of these grains. Of course, corn or maize, wheat, rye, spelt, oats, teff, and I'm sure there's a longer list of the types of grains that are there. But this is what I found. So there's no need of saying, if I become, what am I going to eat? There's a whole variety. The benefits of the grains are here, carbohydrates. They are rich in fiber. That means they help avoid constipation. They reduce the risk of cancer because of some of the phytochemicals that are found in there. They help to avoid what? Coronary diseases, or CVD. They contain what? No cholesterol. Plant foods never have cholesterol unless it's been made somewhere in the lab and something has been injected in it. They help prevent or slow down the incidences of diabetes, and then they produce a great sense of what? Fullness, satiety value. Those are the benefits of grains. Some of the problems with grains are here. They're deficient in what? Some of the essential, remember we talked about essential amino acids yesterday? So without eating a variety, we'll find that we have deficiencies, and especially lysine, isoleucine, all of those, the essential amino acids are not found in. You can find them in a variety of grains, but if you decide, I'm just a lentils person, I don't eat anything else, you can find yourself in a deficiency. Another drawback is that they're what? Acid forming. And then they're allergens, and I think this is partly because of where they're refined, where they're processed. They contain phytates, and a friend mentioned that yesterday about what the problem of phytates is. It's because it interferes with what? Absorption of certain minerals, such as zinc and iron. And then if this happens, we can be culprits or victims of malnourishment. And here is why the phytic acid is a problem, and where it occurs. It binds up calcium, iron, copper, magnesium. It does that, and then they're just emitted because of the presence of phytic acid, and it's present in all the grains. So now what do? We've seen these carbohydrates are some of the things we should have. So if phytic acid is going to interfere with mineral absorption, what are we going to do with the grains? And the answer is there. The grains should cook long and slowly. Long and slowly. These 2 minutes rice and 5-minute porridge is a problem, because that doesn't denature or destroy the phytic acid. So it says 1 to 3 hours should be the sufficient amount of time for you to cook any grain. And soaking it overnight, how many soak? I know people only soak beans. And I'm talking about whole grains here. because it's not really. Phytic acid has been removed when they process the food. But unfortunately, after they've processed the food, they've taken out a whole lot more than phytic acid. All that you're really left with is a starch in the white rice. In the outer shell that they take out, they've taken out the vitamins and the minerals and the phytic acid. So you're left with the starch. So you want the long grains, which have the problem of the phytic acid. So to take care of the phytic acid, you need to do what? To soak and to cook it for a long period of time, between 1 to 3 hours. So you can get those slow cookers. That's what helps to destroy that. So some of the, these are now the simple. Remember, we were talking about complex and simple. These are the simple carbohydrates. Some of the natural fruit sugars are what? Fruit. What else? Honey, maple syrup. How many have seen stevia, the plant? It's a green plant that is now being used by diabetics. It has a very strong aftertaste, but it doesn't spike your blood sugar like the regular sugar would. Sucanut it's just cane sugar, but it's almost like jaggery. How many have you seen? Jaggery is karinguru, a fancy name for karinguru. Xylitol is also in the shops, but this consumed in huge amount causes diarrhea, and it's not a stable sugar to cook or bake in. But once again, it also doesn't spike the blood sugar. Agave is from a plant. It looks like cactus. It's a syrup, or I'm calling it a syrup, but it looks like honey when gone through the refining process, and it's excellent for the body. Diabetics, hepatitis, whoever can take it. But the problem is, people have become so greedy, they take this agave, the syrup, and add high fructose corn syrup with a little bit of agave. You see, there's a problem. With the high fructose corn syrup, because some people have taken agave and said, oh, it spiked my blood sugar. But it's because that agave, when tested, it had high fructose corn syrup. They're known as HFCS. And they add them onto any baked, or actually they're almost in anything that's boxed or pre-processed. The fructose corn syrup. Even in French, in chips, especially these, well, let me not name people before I am sued by these big companies. So more natural sugars, barley malt, molasses. You know molasses, right? And the best kind is that blackstrap. Sorghum can also make some molasses. There's the brown rice syrup. Again, agave is there. And fructose is just simply fruit sugar. But it's not, when this presentation was put together, fructose was still in the glorious light. But several tests have confirmed that too much use begins to affect the liver because of how it's processed. So fiber is still a part of the carbohydrates. And the purpose of it is to do what? Add bulk, absorb water, and act as a what? That's the stuff that cleans out your large intestines especially. And there's two types or two groups of fiber, soluble and insoluble. So here they are. The soluble kind is found in most of the fruits that you eat, in oats, in beans, all of that you find the soluble fiber. Insoluble is the stuff that you find in celery, sukuma wiki, some of these green vegetables, because you do not have cellulase unless the stuff is properly cooked. That one, the body just absorbs what it does need, the vitamins, and then everything else is pushed out. And that's the purpose of consuming fiber in the diet. And we saw the benefits of it. Here are the diseases associated with low fiber diet. Constipation is one of them, the number one. Appendicitis, diverticular disease, this is where you have pockets and dips in your large colon. Hiatus hernia, varicose veins, hemorrhoids, bowel cancer, colon polyps, heart disease, strokes, diabetes, gallbladder disease. Is that enough illnesses to encourage someone to have fiber? Huh? Fiber plays a huge role in the fiber helps to eliminate it's right there, causes of diseases for the most part. It also helps to do what? Accelerate. Remember yesterday we talked about the transit time? I remember when I was in school and my teacher would tell us, our nutrition teacher, that we should move our bowels every once in 3 days. One bowel movement in 3 days. And how many times are you eating in those 3 days? Are you eating once? In the 3 days. So how many meals are those? 9 meals, right? And you moved your bowel how many times? So where is the rest of that stuff? The waste. That's the constipation. When a baby is born, and there's the habits are still good, almost 24 hours there is a bowel movement, right? And of course, the longer we live, you decide, I'm not going to the bathroom. You start training your bowel to do what? To hold. So, whereas you should have been emitting everything that you eat, perfect transit system would be anywhere 24 to 36 hours. Now we are there at 72, 96. You haven't moved your bowel even once. So you have all this backup. I know there's some people, we did some colon cleansing, and one person had as much as 18 kgs of waste. So the colon was distended. It wasn't necessarily fat, it was just waste. 18 kgs is how many? That's a child, a 4 or 5 year old child you're carrying around. So if it comes in, it needs to go out. So, and it doesn't need that whole length of time. The transit time should be more efficient. Africa had 36, and the more developed the country was, the longer it took for them to go to the bathroom. One, because they eat a lot of refined stuff. That was like 2004, 2005. The transit time was at 36, and that was rural people who were tested. So I'm sure in the city, it's a totally different story. The transit time may be just as bad as those developed countries. Nutritional value of grains and starches, they provide what? The vitamins, A, the B complex, the E, the proteins, minerals, and some types of fatty acids are found in grains, and we shall talk about them a little bit more. And fiber, we just kind of repeating. Transitioning on to, we were just talking about carbohydrates, now we're addressing the fats. These are the nutritional needs of the body. Remember, they were what? The nutritional needs of the body. We just talked about carbohydrates. What are the others? Fats, proteins, vitamins, and minerals. So now we're addressing the fats. So the good doctor told us yesterday, fats are not our enemy. I know people who go on fat-free. Our problem is that we have too much free-flowing fats. We are just pouring, and then we fry that thing, and this is where the problem is. But we need fats. We do need fats. Here they are, the definition of them: saturated, mono, and poly. And that's scientifically what saturated means. It just has the whole amount of hydrogens as far as the chemical structure is concerned. Mono is missing one, poly is missing more than one, polyunsaturated. And fats have less oxygen, that's why they make a good energy source. But the best one, as we found out, is the carbohydrates. Fats are needed, we found out yesterday, they're needed to do what? To transport the fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. If you didn't have fats, those vitamins will not be utilized by the body because they have nothing to transport them. And like the carbohydrates, we have them as simple, complex, and there's wax. Wax is also a form of fat, and most of our hormones are coming from the wax. So kinds of fat, we have dietary, meaning you eat it, exogenous from the outside, and we also have body fat from the inside. That's the two fats. And then I mentioned about the essential fatty acids. They are oxygen magnets. They help to repair tissue. They transport this oxygen as a magnet too, in a magnetic form to the blood cells. And deficiency of the essential fatty acids leads to what? A whole lot of problems. I just listed two here. Faulty fetal brain development, vision disturbances, hormonal imbalances, predisposition to lots of other illnesses. What are some of the examples of essential fatty acids, the EFAs? You know them, they have been sung everywhere. What are they, some of them? There's no idea, not one. Nutritionists, I'll pick on you. What is one of them? Because I know you have. What is a type of, or an example of an essential fatty acid? Omega. Have you heard of omegas? There's lots of them. There's omega 3, 9, Q. Okay, they keep coming up with these things. But there are many essential fatty acids totally needed by the body. Now, the best sources of some of these essential fatty acids are what? What are some of the best sources? A food source. A food source of some of these essential fatty acids. She said avocado. That has a bit of 3 and 6. What else? Flax seeds. She said flax seeds. But I said the best source. Somebody said fish? Yes. So tukimbia tunanunua samaki and fish oils. Anyway, it would be so if the fish didn't come with all these other things with it. The good thing is that the plant sources is also good. When he said the fish will provide the DHA that's needed and the EPA, that's the form, if I start pronouncing those words, that's the form that the body utilizes it in. From the plant source, it's ALA, alpha-linolenic acid. That's where we get it. And that ALA form has to be converted to DHA, docosahexaenoic acid, or the EPA, eicosapentaenoic acid. It has to be converted to that for the body to use it. So the good thing is that the body properly furnished can convert this. So we don't have to run to the cod liver oil. How many of us took that stuff as kids? Your nose would be pinched. Ay, man. But we are here. We survived. There's plant sources. And the best plant source from the lignans is the flaxseed. Actually, chia is slightly on top, only that it gives irritation at a certain point. But the chia is on top. Flaxseed is excellent. And we'll look at them. I'm just really going ahead of myself here. Good sources, omega-6 is in abundance. Any vegetable oil has omega-6. In fact, the ratio should be 3 to 1. We are like this. The 6 is just too much. Too much. And then the 3, we don't get it as much. So here are some food sources of both. Pumpkin, sunflower seeds, maize or corn, olives, flaxseed oil, chia seeds, walnuts, seaweed, and these are just a few of them. Of the sources. So you don't have to feel like you're missing out on something. And so these are some other healthier sources of fats, nuts, just eating them as they are. Olives, avocados, like she mentioned, grains, legumes, beans and peas. And these are the nutritional values of those things that we have talked about. The nuts will provide you with vitamins, minerals, the minerals such as calcium, potassium, zinc, iron, magnesium, selenium. The olives, excellent. And they're also really good for constipation. Avocados, they give you your vitamins A, B, C, folic acid, essential amino acids. This country, we are blessed. I remember one place I was, you'd buy an avocado, a thing that is so small, and it was like $4. Lord. So you ate it alone in your bedroom with the doors closed because, first of all, it wasn't enough. It was so expensive. But here, it's like every season we have avocados. Actually, in my language, it's called dog food. Avocado's name is dog food because it falls and the dogs are the ones that eat it. It's so much, so much. We're done with fats. We'll do proteins and then we'll take a short break, ask whatever questions, and then we'll continue. So proteins are the building blocks. And the simplest form we learned yesterday is how it's used in the body is in what form? As amino acids. And then there's 2 types of proteins, essential and non-essential. Essential means we have to supply it through what? Through what we eat, right? And the non-essential, the body makes that up, so you don't have to go find it somewhere. Now, the animal source of protein, it provides all that you need, just from a single, like we were told yesterday. But you can still get it from your plant source, non-heme. You can get it from a plant source, but you can't be on a dog food diet, eating the same beans every single day. You have to vary it. You have to eat it in a variety. There's so many different beans. Are there not? Lots and lots of beans. So Have fun with them. Interchangeably use them. And then here, who needs protein? Everyone. I know there was, in school when I was learning, they said after a certain age you don't need protein, but your body is constantly breaking down, there's waste and repair, and proteins are needed for this, for hormonal balance, so everyone needs protein. The amount is what differs with age, with activity, with gender, with all of that. So everyone needs protein. But protein deficiency is not a problem like it used to be. I remember when we were in school, there was a lot of, kwashiorkor and marasmus. I don't even hear those words anymore. Maybe in certain very remote, maybe Chad or somewhere, they probably still suffer from some of this, like kwashiorkor, but protein deficiency is almost a thing of the past. So the song that is sung, when you become vegetarian, you're going to have a protein, that is, I don't know who started that. I would like to find them. Just tell them where do they live, because there's protein everywhere. So expecting mothers, breastfeeding mothers, children, those recovering from illness, especially those, they need the protein. And like I said, as we age, we need less of it. So there's how many kinds? Plant and animal. The purpose is to build tissue, to make enzymes, just repeating all the things that we've already said. Dr. Kirubo yesterday was mentioning how you have to balance this and that, but to obtain a complete protein, there's no need for combining. I remember in school they told us you have to have rice and beans to have a complete protein. But now, all you need to do is eat a variety of those things, of the beans and the grains. At each meal, any given meal, do a variety. Your body makes, like I said, the non-essential ones that you make. And if you eat a variety, there it is. You have your protein need met. And let me just slide through this, the human versus animal. Let me just address it for a quick second, because we're talking about protein. Our teeth, we do have, actually, I don't think everyone has it. My brother seems not to have, what are they called, these sharp teeth? Incisors? Canines. Is that what they're called? Canines, these ones. My brother doesn't have them. These are all, he has the molars, but he doesn't have the canine teeth. But anyway, humans, most of our teeth are for grinding. And then our mouth is alkaline, and then the large intestine is very long. For the animals, they have those canine, Caesar type, whatever, their mouth is acidic. Their hydrochloric acid is how many times stronger than the human? 10 times stronger. And remember what's digested in the stomach? What's digested in the stomach? Protein. That's the only thing that's digested in the stomach. And what digests it? The doctors should be very disappointed if you don't remember. Pardon? Pepsin. Excellent student, you're probably, yeah. Pepsin is what is the active, pepsin and hydrochloric acid, they're the active enzymes and gastric juices present in the stomach to break down protein. Now, the rest continues in the small intestines, but your stomach is about 2.5, the hydrochloric acid. For the animal, is a lot stronger than that. Maybe it's even on this other side of the scale. For them to digest, because their diet is predominantly what? The animals, especially the carnivores, their diet is predominantly what? Flesh. So they need that. Their mouth is acid, it's already working on it, stomach working on it, and their intestines are short. Welcome. They are short. So this is our teeth. Can you see our teeth? Those are our teeth. She doesn't even have canines herself, and those are the teeth for the canines. The digestive tract is there as long, and then we have hands, we don't have claws. So in essence, you build the case for yourself. Draw your own conclusion. It is a mistake to suppose that muscular strength depends on the use of animal food. The needs of the system can be better supplied, and the more vigorous health can be enjoyed without its use. The grains with fruits, nuts, and vegetables contain all the nutritive properties necessary to make good blood. All the nutritive properties. None is missing unless your soil is deprived. Let me just talk about purines, and then we shall take a break. Do you know what purines are? Byproducts of what? Protein digestion, protein metabolism. All protein have, some more than others. So the plant, and uric acid, you saw it there. And what are some of the problems with uric acid buildup? Bacterial pneumonia. Gout, my father's, he's a problem man. It's like, just learn to live with it, and then when he came off, and it's a combination sometimes of two, the alcohol and the meat. Those two, they just produce a really good bout. What else? Uric acid and purine, and what other problems? I see people's mouths moving, but I have no idea what they're saying. Pardon? She said kidney. Yeah, kidney problems, of course. But we shall look at them. Let's keep going. So, like I said, urine. Purine is found in all the protein, but soy protein causes less excrement of calcium in the urine. Plant-based diets are low in purines, and they stimulate little uric acid production. So they're better to have than their counterparts, the meat source. Here are some of the problems with, health concerns with too much protein. Kidney stones, osteoporosis, brittle bones, somebody mentioned it yesterday, heart disease, gout, cancer, decreased endurance. I remember once we were putting up a tent, you know those big tents with that center pole that's really huge. And we had these young men, and their muscles were just coming out of their shirts. You know, they were really muscular. And then we had this to lean older people, but some of them had been vegetarians all their life. They were older, like in their 70s. So they were all putting up the tent. There was 3 of the young, muscular guys, and then there was 4 of the older guys. So they were putting it up. The young guys were sweating bullets. And after about 20 minutes, all of them, they were 25 and under. They had gone to sit under a shade. Guess who was still working? The older guys. And it's not because we're moving slower. It's just, and that's where they confirmed, you know what? There's a lot more endurance in the carbohydrates and plant sources. I think we talked about that. All right, we can take a break, and then we'll talk about eggs for a quick second.